Out of an average of 27,375 days, we spent about 5,692 behind a desk in an educational facility listening to an authority figure talk about something they learned in the time they spent behind a desk. And on most of those days, about 90% of us are pretty much bored to death. And on the side of being bored, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and state some of the other feelings students might have, since I am a student too. So the first one is stress, which I hear is pretty common. The second one is joy, which in my experience is not so common. And the third one is anxiety, which is also pretty common. But regardless of what I just said about how common they are, it is a fact that students get a lot of negative emotions and anxieties derived directly from school. And I think that that is wrong on many, many levels. Now, let's take a look at some of the definitions of the word learning. This is the first default result that comes on Google when you search learning definition. It's by the Oxford Dictionary. This is the definition by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. And this is by the Cambridge Dictionary. As you might notice, all of these are stating more or less the same thing, and I'm pretty sure that if I leave all of you, you will come up with a similar definition. And regardless of what I said about being bored at school, I'm here to tell you that learning is one of the rare beauties we have in this boring world of ours. I mean, we all have this idea embedded in us that school is supposed to be tough, that acquiring knowledge is supposed to be hard, and the worst one is that learning is boring. And I'm here to tell you that learning is anything but boring. I mean, I would put it up there with the feeling of hot teacups against cold hands, or the smell of your grandmother's perfume that somehow never empties. Things on the border between reality and magic. And it is quite a shame that a concept so breathtaking is taken by the public education system and reshaped into something dreadful and avoided. And what's even worse is that there are so many people out there sharing their ideas on improving the system, and it still has not moved from where it was literally at the beginning of modern schooling. We still have a class of around 30 with only one teacher. We still have the same method of teaching, and we use it on every student, and we still have standardized testing. The worst one is the same method of teaching that we use on every student regardless of their previous knowledge and current needs. So reading this talk out loud about half a century ago, perhaps excuses like we don't have the technology would be valid, but not today. Not in an era where almost every aspect of life is reformed except education, the only thing that guarantees a stable future for all of us. For instance, imagine you walk into class and you're not eager for the school day to end. You're actually happy and glad you're there. You're not stressing over the English exam next week because you studied for it with your teacher, you went over to the material as many times as necessary and were left with a solid understanding of everything you studied. And if you're a student that's good at math, then that should be nurtured and encouraged. And also if you're a student that's not good at math, you should be faced with ways adequate to your way of thinking. And you should be inspired to learn. In order to achieve high quality education, I think there are two crucial ways to improve the system. The first is simplifying it and making it more enjoyable, and the second part is personalization of the system. So for the first part, a great example is Finland. You see, they weren't happy with their ranking amongst other educational systems worldwide, so what did they do? They simplified their system, and they did it to the extent of minimizing the amount of homework and the amount of time students spend at school. To this day, they have the shortest school days and school years in the world. Their average school day is about 5.5 hours, and the average school day for the rest of the world is about 6 hours. That is almost half an hour longer. And also, they only have about 5 lessons a day that last for 45 minutes. The rest is breaks and lunch evenly distributed. Doing a little quick math shows us that they only have 3.5 hours of instruction each day. And also, fun fact, every school in Finland serves a healthy, tasty, and most importantly, completely free lunch for every student they have since 1943. Now, let's take a look at the results Finland scored on the international PISA test through the years. As you can see, they rank pretty high except for the years between 2009 and 2015 in the results in math, reading, and science. So now let's compare the average Finnish result of Singapore, the leader in the PISA test. You can see that Finland, with its flawless system, is 7 places behind Singapore. So some of you might argue that perhaps their system isn't great after all and the traditional one is better. But these aren't the only statistics available to us. We can take a look at the sad story behind Singapore's constant high ranking and Finland's setback. First, we have 3 graphs representing what we saw in the tables. The blue line, representing Finland, is having a gradual downfall, whereas the orange line, representing Singapore, is almost constantly higher. Now for the scary part. What we can see from these 3 graphs is that Singapore students aren't satisfied with their lives, don't feel like they belong at school, and are experiencing a maximum of schoolwork-related anxiety. So yes, their academic scores might be continuously high, but you know what's also high? Their suicide rate. In 2016, there were a reported 27 suicides between 10 and 19-year-olds, double that of the previous year and the highest for more than a decade. In May of 2016, an 11-year-old boy jumped to his death from a 17th floor on a flat block, fearful of sharing his exam results with his parents. It was the first time the child had failed a subject. Let that sink in. Because in Finland, unlike Singapore, teachers are mostly driven by their wish for their students to be happy and to enjoy themselves, not to continuously have to learn. And they still rank pretty high regardless of that. So isn't that what education is about? Making new generations better than the previous ones. And Finland is pretty good at that, by having more of happiness, creativity, and motivation, and less of high pressures and expectations. And for the second part, personalization. I mostly think it's crucial because we are in fact complex beings, and with that complexity comes uniqueness. We all have different ways of forming opinions and of viewing the world, and no one can tell me that everyone will be able to study from a single textbook someone wrote on, let's say, organic chemistry. It's ridiculous. And also, in our modern society, where almost everything is digitalized, we have to find ways to creatively implement technological advances in the classroom. For example, using individual worksheets, or having interactive classes with visual presentations, so less traditional by-the-book learning. Teachers should teach in ways that are appropriate to their students' mindsets, not by rules dictated by some Minister of Education somewhere. A much broader spectrum of teaching must be encouraged, one in which will every student be able to individually prosper and excel. And yes, I know that this will take effort and time and money too, but it will be worth it. So it's time to immediately step up and not just get in the game, but change the rules. Thank you.